Hey everybody, welcome back to the Lunar Sea Spire. We are back again talking about She-Ra, and soon after the debut of Season 5 on Netflix, and we are very excited to share our thoughts.
We had so many thoughts, in fact, that this will be part 1 of our discussion on the final season. So stay tuned for follow-up videos to come as well.
The season was absolutely massive. I can't even remember what expectations I had before the season started anymore because they were so blown away, much like any existence of Horde Prime. It was really special, and huge hats off to the crew for making this. I can't believe how well they stuck the landing for this show. Well planned and so well completed. I don't feel any lingering feelings of, I wish they could have done this one thing with this one character arc more. They basically nailed every ship. They nailed every character's journey.
I do want to know where Adora came from. That's kind of my biggest thing. If we're going to talk about nitpicks, it's we did mention a couple times Adora wants to know who her family were and where she came from, and that kind of wasn't brought up. I think I think Noelle specifically tweeted something along the lines of she wrote it to be specifically kind of open-ended in that regard, where you can sort of imagine what they would do, but not to have any concrete epilogue on what happens, so your imagination can go a little bit wild with that, which I do appreciate. But I also do want to know a little bit about Adora's family.
Where is my mother?
I mean, the rumors of the first one's demise have been greatly exaggerated, I think.
Well, they're obviously, out there making babies.
This whole season, actually, I think because of how depressing a lot of the subject matter is, they did toss in several ridiculous elements into it. And how Entrapta acted was one, but another thing I noticed was the revelation that Mermista has also set a boat on fire just to see what it felt like.
Oh, set a quote boat on fire.
And she is everything Seahawk has ever wanted.
That was so
I love that it
funny.
turns out that all of those ships that Seahawk has burned are basically just his exes. So I love that burning a ship is a euphemism for a short flame of passionate love, following with the deep, regrettable
rivalry
breakup.
But just to counter some of the depression, they turned Seahawk into a pyromaniac. They turned Entrapta into that.
So are we all just okay with this?
Speaking of going out in a ball of fire, Shadow Weaver has had an interesting development this season, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, I hate that she got redeemed," but for me, I'm pretty satisfied with what they did with her. She's dead, right? It's over for her, and I'm pretty satisfied with that.
You're welcome.
You're happy with her redemption equals death moment?
Yeah, who cares if she's redeemed or not? She's dead and will continue to be dead for eternity, right? Here's your message towards, abusive parents and caregivers. If you want to redeem yourself to your children, you can just sacrifice yourself in a massive ball of fire and then just be dead forever, right?
Right. I mean, she definitely doesn't get. It's not like her two abused children ever say, "You know what? We're cool now with everything that ever happened in the past between us and Shadow Reaver," right? They recognize the sacrifice, and that's all it is. And she gets called out by both of them
multiple times.
Just heart-wrenchingly that Adora just says, "You are the cause of every pain,"
right?
And all you do is sow sorrow in the world. It's so funny because Shadow Weaver, we struggled to understand why she wanted power so much. What really motivated her? And I feel like in this season, it showed just how petty that desire was, that it didn't appear to have that great of motivation. In the end, Shadow Weaver was so pettily focused on her own feeling of power and control and self-importance, right? The same kind of self-importance that drives her abusive relationship.
I do find it funny that you say that Shadow Weaver's, desire for power to siphon off some of the heart of Etheria was petty, because all I could think about in that moment is holy cow, I understand why they don't want her to have that magical power, but like, I'm pretty sure Horde Prime wouldn't want Shadow Weaver wielding that again. She would destroy him! Like, I think Adora let him off easy just by annihilating his spirit.
Just by murdering him in cold blood at point blank range and just like eviscerating his atoms and unwriting his existence. That was I kind of appreciate, like Steven Universe was very like redeem the villains, like, you know what, we can kill Horde Prime. There could be a little bit of
a little bit of murder
as a treat.
Horde Prime is kind of a jerk.
I mean, like, he's a truly ancient evil, right? And they never killed any of the Horde Prime followers.
He's Space Hitler.
Oh, he's not just Space Hitler, he's like Space Antichrist. Like, I love
Space
the religious
Satan.
overtones. And
Noelle confirmed it. Yeah, like they confirmed it specifically that Horde Prime was sort of influenced by cult leaders. I found that very good, and it really, really added to Horde Prime's character of just how freaking terrifying he is. Especially in the beginning of the season where like nothing about him, and all you can infer is that this guy just knows everything and sees everything and is just all powerful and has like unlimited power, can wipe you of your free will. I mean, and the scenes with him in it where there's just no music and that he's like almost twice as tall as any other character. The voice acting was fantastic, and his demeanor, his like fake hospitality, and every single time he blinks, you hear it. Right? That's great.
That's actually a great note on that sound design. I loved that they took away the music, and then when they introduced just the organ sounds with nothing else, like, all of those contributed to just a scary atmosphere.
I mean, it's true, Horde Prime is very intimidating, but at the same time, I don't think he understands people very well. He needs to surround himself with people other than himself, because, like, he keeps a very threatening aura around Catra, and he makes it super clear that what he holds as best in life is everyone acting just like him. So when he's making very vague promises of, oh yeah, Catra, I'll see that you get what is due to you should you do my bidding, it's like, what did you expect her to do other than betray you? Like, Catra has to have watched some TV.
I think Prime expected Catra to act purely in her self-interest to a degree, and like could see very clearly how afraid Catra was of him. Like, he didn't have to listen to her heartbeat and like zoom in on her pupils. Like, she was audibly scratching his nice table. Come on.
Yeah, but the problem is, like, he made it clear that her own self-interest was, disobeying him, because if she just sits there under his thumb, he's gonna do something terrible to her eventually. Like, he probably would have chipped her sooner or later. Okay, Catra, I've conquered Etheria, here's your reward.
Yeah, and Catra's motivations are so complex and convoluted even to herself, right? Like, the true reason that she does things is, she puts on a front on what it is, not just to others, but to herself. Like, she liked being in the Horde over joining Adora for kind of like two reasons, I think. One was that the sort of power that she got being in the Horde, she felt respected and responsible and and validated, essentially, like worth something to others, and she never felt that before, kind of living under Adora's shadow. And she was totally fine with having Adora be on the enemy side, because she got to prove herself again. She also got to prove that Adora did care about her. That's why she loved toying with her all the time, because it was validating to hurt Adora and have Adora be like, no, I still care about you, because she finds that in a way sort of rewarding, because she feels like she's not loved, and she's very insecure about that and very sensitive to rejection. And sort of seeing Prime's deadliness gave her a bit of a wake-up call, because his omnipotence made her feel powerless, so she didn't get that validation anymore. She didn't get that agency and responsibility. It was kind of her push to turn against Horde Prime. Like, she has sort of like these two stages to her arc, which is something that I really liked about the season. Like, even though things kind of happened quickly, I never felt like it was rushed. With things like Catra being this mortal enemy who's done all these awful things to all these characters, you know, being suddenly at the end being kind of like loved by everybody and being friends with everybody. Like, that's a huge, you know, change to go in just this one character in just this one season. But I never felt like it was rushed. Like, the pacing of all of it was done so well. From her sort of like realizing that Horde Prime, he's, you know, she's not going to be able to butter him up and work up her ranks like she does in the just original little off section of the Horde. She did kind of die.
Oh, she died. She died.
She like
it was like an Avatar Aang death, where like
well, Aang it was a lot more clear.
Borderline.
Like with Aang, it was like, oh, he doesn't have a pulse. But with Catra, it was kind of like, like it took other people pointing it out in a rewatch for me to be like, oh yeah, she dead. Like she didn't die of the fall, I don't know, but she did die of her injuries afterwards, or, you know, Adora flinging her around her shoulder like a sack of potatoes. Because that's not proper spinal restriction procedures.
I hope it wasn't that.
It was very dramatic, Adora holding Catra with like her neck thrown back in like that dramatic position. But I'm thinking like, man, that's the exact opposite thing you're supposed to do when somebody has had spinal cord damage. Like, that's so bad. Where's the backboard? Like, where's the C-spine? Oh my god. So I don't know, maybe Adora did kind of kill her a little bit with that. But that was... But, yeah, and here kind of marks the sort of second part of Catra's arc, where she not only sort of sheds this idea she had of like earning validation by fighting Adora and working with the enemy and getting respect that way. Like, she sort of allows herself to be vulnerable, but it takes a while. Like, at the beginning, she's like, the episode after Save the Cat, taking control, which is like, yeah, that's like the kind of a clever little play on words there, because, you know, Adora's taking control of her transformations of She-Ra, and Horde Prime is taking control of the people of Etheria, and Catra's sort of taking control of herself, right, and her agency, and being like, you know what, I'm tired of lying to myself constantly about what I want, and just, you know, doing all these awful things in that idea.
Well, and being able to express herself what she wants. Like, that was like a core part of what helps save Adora in the end, is that Catra understands that she needs to say what she wants and what she cares about to the people that it matters to.
Yeah, she can't be all cocky and be like, you know, don't sound so excited to hear me. To be just like genuine and open and vulnerable, which is of course very hard for her. Like, Catra never asked for help. She's like, just drop me off on some planet, I can handle myself. You know, and that turn of being like, when Adora first left the Horde at the very beginning of the show, like, Catra couldn't say, stay because I want you here. Stay because you're important to me. Like, she could never do that. She could only be like, you betrayed, you know, the Horde who gave you everything you had in your life. Like, she couldn't say, I need you, right? Like, screw all the excuses. I want you in my life. I want us to be partners in crime. And I don't want you to leave. I don't want to give up on this plan and this dream that we had. And she finally starts to sort of have that in this episode where she's not only asking for help, like she told Adora, like, don't save me from Horde Prime, no. But now she's asking not just for, like, physically save me from harm, but, like, emotionally comfort me. Which, if anything, is, like, a step higher in vulnerability, right? Because you're not just being like, oh, you know, keep me from being dead, but like, keep me from being upset, right? Like, comfort me. Like, that's a hard thing to ask for, especially from people who have like those sort of insecurities about others.
Yeah, it's like she has to love herself in order to accept that that's an okay thing for other people to do too. Because basically her journey and Adora's journey are opposites, but they arrive to the same path, where Adora is very selfish and selfless, and Catra appears very selfish, but both of them are lacking a true self-respect and self-love that can allow them to be honest with what they actually want for their lives. And so for Catra, the fact that expresses itself as finally being able to give that to Adora and say, I I care about myself enough that I want you to know that I care about you too and I need you in my life was just unbelievably touching. I just can't believe that it honestly is being delivered through like a children's show, because I just feel like that's not something I've seen anywhere else. But even almost as impactful, or really even more impactful to me, was how that resolved Adora's journey of realizing that being the selfless hero that always sacrifices, which seems to always be presented as the best possible person to be in any, at least kids show I've ever watched, right? Kids shows mix in the message of like, yeah, rely on your friends, but we just love sacrificial heroes. And this show even had that with Angela, like that we've had our sacrificial hero before, and obviously with Shadow Weaver, and those were the right things to do at those moments. But the fact that, like Mara talks to Adora and says, I've sacrificed myself too to make sure you wouldn't. There's a time and a point at which we need to not just accept that you go in on everything alone. And
God, poor Adora and Steven with that martyr complex, like they don't need that, it was.
Well, it's like they both understand the importance of friendship and love, but they don't realize that the most powerful form of that love is actually including your loved ones in sharing in your pain and sharing in your struggle. Like, that's a really hard thing to accept, because when we love the people we love, we don't want them to experience the pain we're feeling, but we have to be vulnerable to sharing that, which is really hard to wrap. I think, that's the hardest thing to wrap your mind around.
Yeah, and there was kind of going back to what you were saying about how the climax of the show was essentially like Catra, admitting her feelings. And there's this sort of like saying where it's like, I know that you love me, but it still helps to hear you say it. You can read very clearly that Catra cares for Adora, but like hearing her she hates being vulnerable and she hates admitting her feelings, and hearing her disregard that and admitting it anyway is like also a sort of testament to how much she cares. And I really like that final scene was just like, I went this whole season being like, it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. I'm reading too much into it. It's just not gonna happen.
No, it's like the Korosami problem all over again. You're
right,
like, well, they keep blushing at each other. There's all this blushing happening.
There's all the blushing and all like the right. And I'm just like, it's just I can't like bait myself into thinking I'm gonna get any sort of like explicit expression of this, right? Like, oh, it's just gonna be another like, oh, they hold hands at the end, and then the creators confirm it on Twitter.
Still didn't know what kind of show you were watching after all this time, did you, Sophia?
I didn't. Okay, I was like, yeah, and it's just like, and I was watching this season, and there was, I think, like the biggest one in the beginning. Well, there was two. There was one where it was like Catra and Glimmer on each sides of the force field, and Catra being like, we would stay up late and talk about, and then she blushes, and I'm like, you talk about boys, but this is a gay show, so maybe like not, right? And then later when Adora was like, well, Catra's not my friend, she's like, but like instead of
God, like, that moment when she's in the cave trying to explain
like,
her relationship.
You could literally just say
the animation on that was so, oh my god, like you could just see her constantly shifting position, and she just is so uncomfortable with saying, actually,
she changes poses like 8 times in that sentence. But it's so funny, like she didn't have to make it that awkward at all. She can just be like, we've had a really rocky friendship, and you could be like, we've had a really, you could just be like, it's a complicated relationship, we haven't always been friends. No, but you have to make it sound like it's not, it's more than that. And then again, like, Adora, horrible at lying to her friends, but like really good at lying to Horde Prime, apparently. Like, I really appreciated her act there and her like confidence. That was, I don't know.
Unfortunately for Adora, Horde Prime is ever the logical gentleman, and he was able to see right through that.
That was interesting, and I was like, at that, but then I was like, no, it's not.
Oh no,
they're just.
I was
friends.
absolutely convinced when, like, Bo was talking about, finally Catra's first mission. He's like, oh, you're so cute. Your ears are so cute in your spacesuit. Your sneeze is so cute, and you can see Adora laughing, and they both have They both lock eyes, and then Bo has the moment that literally happens in The Legend of Korra, where I think it's Mako looks between Korra and Asami, and he's like, "What's going on with you two?" And I was like, "Yeah, we know what's going on."
Anyway, we have a lot more to talk about in the final season, but we'll continue our discussion in another video. Until next time.